Welcome, and thank you all for coming to the Phoenix High School Young Voters Forum presented by Phoenix High School for the 2019 local election. The students at Phoenix have set this up as part of a project, which is how we go about earning credit.
We picked this project to inform us about local politics, so we could become more informed voters. I'm Nova Brannigan.
I'm Ezra Jones.
And we will be your moderators today.
Today we have candidates for the City Council: Mr. Torelli, Ms. Warner, Mr. Beecham, Mr. Pachuk, Mr. Del Gesso, and Mr. Milbaugh.
And the candidates for the school board: Ms. Carlisle, Mr. Mabry, Ms. Maester, and Ms. Sundin.
This is the first question for the City Council. Kennewick has a serious problem with homelessness. According to the Washington State Point in Time Count of Homelessness in Benton County, there were 152 homeless people in Benton County in January of 2019. These statistics include 22 households with children. This issue hits close to home for us because some of our students are currently experiencing or have experienced homelessness. If elected, how will you use your position to find solutions for homelessness in Kennewick?
So for me, it's about collaboration, it's about partnerships, it's about working with agencies that exist within the community and bringing in other agencies to help us with this. The city cannot solve homelessness by itself. We have to be a collaborative entity working not only in Kennewick, but regionally. Homelessness affects every community out here. Now there's things like Ansel, there's My Friend's Place. Those are Band-Aids. They're helpful Band-Aids, but they're still Band-Aids. We need affordable housing, we need referral systems, we need to, perhaps with redeployment of Kennewick General's campus, maybe there's hope of dealing with some of the homeless issues there. I know from a zoning perspective, we're building tiny homes. There's 13 of them going down by 13th Street. That's going to be helpful to a point. I have talked too long, so I will stop and figure out how to turn this off now. And I will not do that again.
That would be great for the first time.
Homelessness in Kennewick is an issue. That's part of the reason I'm running for City Council. Director of Ministries at the Tri-City Union Gospel Mission, the only homeless shelter between here in Yakima and here in Bend, Oregon. So 152 is a low number for homelessness in our community, and we need to bring awareness to the struggles that they're having and why they're homeless, the root causes of that, and that's mental illness, drug and alcohol addiction, lack of housing, and lack of working wage jobs. Kennewick is heavy in retail, so we need to bring in some other jobs that would help, and trades would be a wonderful solution in that. So I appreciate working towards that.
I think with this, one thing to be aware of is the cause and effect. What do we have going on here? Why are people in Kennewick or Benton County, why are they homeless? What's causing that, and what can we do then to fix that problem? Some of the causes are personal choices that people make that we can't stop. So if you graduate high school and you go to get a job and you stay off drugs, the odds that you're going to be homeless in the future are very, very low. But when we make choices in life that we decide that we're going to do those things, that we're not going to get our education, if we get addicted to drugs and alcohol, it's a lot easier for us to become homeless. Homelessness in the Tri-Cities right now isn't a lack of housing. That happens in other settings, but right now, if people are wanting to find housing, normally they can. So right now for me, it's more of a thing where people are battling addiction and mental health. So we need to address that issue. A lot of those people we see that are homeless right now, if we can solve that for them, help them, give them some avenues to where they can find ways to take care of that, that will help them to then want to get off the street or be able to do it, to make the better choices.
Yeah, one thing that coming from the zoning part of the city, I think it would be helpful if we could look for property that the city isn't using right now and fund that for public housing. In addition to that, I would not mind supporting vouchers for folks that need help right now. Is it long-term? No. But we also have to think outside the box when it comes to helping folks. One idea that I've seen going on in other big cities and across the nation, they're calling them pods. Think of a dorm room. And that's all you get though when you sign up for these pods. And they're large, maybe 2 structured buildings. And what people are doing, they're moving in there temporarily until they can get on their feet, or let's say you're a college student. One I saw was nothing but electricians. One I saw was nothing but musicians. And so they're just small rooms, temporary, maybe a lot of internet going on and high-tech stuff down in the lunchroom area, but they're just temporary, it's temporary fix. But I also think you gotta think outside the box. For example, Yakima is converting their jails, again, not ideal, right? But it's somewhere where someone can go safe to spend the night. And I think we should start thinking like that. What do we have available to folks to be safe where they can spend the night?
Yeah, the number of homeless people in the Kennewick area in Tri-Cities is still at a low enough point where we can continue to be proactive about homelessness and do the outreach, make sure that we're looking at programs that are going to be beneficial to next steps in taking people from a homeless situation and putting them into a home and putting them into an environment where they have a wage job. What I would say is that in continuing this proactiveness is that we also be mindful of how our zoning is situated, that we don't zone out areas for infill housing or for affordable housing, and that we also don't zone areas as such that the resources for homeless people are removed. Some of the homeless people that we also encounter are transient on the way to from a place to a place. They're looking for help from family, and they've only been able to make it so far. So we also have to look at community cares programs like KPD offers, has some funds to be able to give those people money to get them to the next place.
Shelter is a basic necessity for all people, and one of the primary responsibilities of the government. Kennewick does recognize that there's a homelessness issue not only within the state, but within our community. And we need to be open-minded and compassionate as we examine the root causes of the homelessness. As we address it, we need to be proactive in seeking out partnerships with our not-for-profit partners within our community in order to seek help with them, using our business leaders, them forming councils to look at the issue and to address the different issues. I think another consideration would be to form a task force with these partners, and within that task force, bring in the community and citizens to address the homelessness issue in our community. Thank you.
Every year, high school seniors face a new set of graduation requirements. This year, we have 8 pathways to graduate instead of the state testing requirement. But here we are, at the end of the first quarter, and we don't know how to use most of the pathways. Next year, the class of 2021 will have to earn 24 credits, a whole extra semester worth of credit, but we have no changes in the school schedules to accommodate this. No resources for extra help. If you are elected to the school board, how will you help students in Kennewick deal with the constant changing graduation requirements?
I would say first and foremost, the counselors and the teachers that are working with you, they need to be well aware of what the direction is that they have to go, the seniors have to go. It's hard when you have the state that's mandating things and changing around, but the counselors and the teachers need to be aware of what they need to do in that direction. I think with this increase of credits that you have to have, I think we need to look at alternatives. We need to look at going from the semester to the trimester to allow for different classes to be done and to get more credits. I also think we need to look at things like having a, what am I trying to say? A mentoring program where you can actually get credit for mentoring or working with elderly within the, like in the nursing facilities, or, you know, if you can do it in a job where you have a mentor. I think all of those ways are ways of getting education, because education in the school is great, but you learn so much more when you are actually out in the field.
Hi. First of all, I want to say, man, you guys came up with some great questions. I think of all the forums we've been in, I'm speaking for myself, the questions are the toughest. But this is a great question. I look forward to answering it. There's an organization named OPEC. That's one of our state level organizations that gives you a pathway. If you go to their website, it gives you step-to-step directions on how to meet these requirements. And I highly recommend, and I know some of the administrators know this, but you guys, you asked for OPEC, and it has a direct link to how you can get through this pathway. Like you said, it's very tough, it's challenging, but that you can do it. Have faith, absolute faith in you. This school is a great example of what we put forth. I'm presently on the school board and want to remain on the school board. And these are the things we put forth for people to have different avenues, ways to meet the requirements. You have a program called APEX, the Accelerated APEX, that you can go online. You guys need to hype that up to other students. That gives you the advantage of doing some of your work at home if you need to. If you get behind, it gives you an avenue to get caught up. You should really announce that. Work credit. When I was in school, high school, I worked on high school, and some of the things I did in my job related to what I was doing in my studies, but I could not get someone to say, hey, let's give them credit for the work time. So if you work at McDonald's and you're behind the cash register, I would say that you're pretty good at math, and you should get some credit for that. And we should work towards making that credit available for you. We should look at larger districts. We should look on the west side, the Seattles, or even on the east side with Spokane, and see how the larger districts are handling this issue, because it's statewide. It's not just the Tri-Cities. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Continue to increase our options. Look at what we can do for people that have, migrants that go out of the school district and back in the school district. How can we keep them caught up without losing ground? How can we have that, give them Chromebooks while they're away so that they can keep up with the classroom structure and what's going on so that they do not fall behind. All those programs we are presently looking into, and others, to keep you guys on path to graduating. Whatever the state throws at all of the community, we can handle it. We can do it.
All right. Hey, again, I think that's a great question. Actually went online today, as Ron said. If you go out to the KSD area, you'll find graduation requirements and pathways. That'll give you an idea. There's 8 of them. I think from a standpoint of 8, it seems like a lot of flexibility. I'm on board with that. Another thing, though, is it doesn't seem like you guys know what needs to be done, and that's the scary part of this whole question. I was at Kennewick this morning teaching our junior achievement class, and I asked a class of 20 individuals. They were freshmen, juniors, sophomores, and seniors, how they knew how to graduate, what pathways there were, and none of them can answer it. Obviously, there's a concern that says you guys are not getting the information you need to be successful. And I'm going to take it one step further. It's not at the high school level. It needs to start at the middle school level. You guys need to understand what classes you need to take to be successful. And it could be for some of these graduation requirements, or for the military, for trades, these type of deals. College is not for everybody, so there's multiple options. I'm on board with that. I just think you guys need a better map to get you to success.
So they stole all my thunder, so I'm just going to go to the end. So as a school board member, yes, what I would commit to. So I spent the last 3 or 4 years working with the legislature. Obviously, they don't listen to teachers or students very well, because these kinds of things have happened, and it's a horrible mess. So my commitment to you is to continue working for funding. There are a lot of things that we're already doing. The board is looking at some, helping you do some more electronic kinds of things that I would certainly agree with. I hope you all know you do not have to take the SBA and pass that. So am I going to be in trouble for saying that? Okay. You do not have to. They told you originally you had to pass it, fail it, and then do something else. You do not have to, and that came from the state last week. So I want you to know that, first of all. The other thing is Core 24 has been a huge concern of mine for a lot of years before it ever came up. Our school board was really good, and they took a pass on that for a year, and now we're having to do that. It keeps kids from doing a lot of things. It keeps you from doing some electives you want to do. It keeps you from going to Tri-Tech. It keeps you from whatever else you may want to do, because you have no chance to miss a class. And I don't call it failure, but sometimes, like, I didn't pass math the first time, so I had to take it again. Sometimes we gotta do things a few more times. If we lower class size, you get more one-on-one instruction from your teachers. That takes money from the state, so that's not a board kind of issue. We need more people within our schools to help the things we're talking about already, mental health issues, family issues, social workers, nurses. If you're sick all the time, you can't come to school, you don't pass your classes. So there's a lot of things that we need money from the state to be able to do. So again, I just would say that I'm gonna commit to you to just keep bugging those people in Olympia.
Move on to question 2. According to the Office of Superintendent of Public Education 2018 Health Youth Survey, 1 out of 10 teens in Washington had attempted suicide in the last year, and 1 out of 5 teens had considered it. Yet the Tri-Cities has no inpatient youth mental health facility. Families in crisis struggle to find inpatient spots for their children. Nearest inpatient youth mental health facility is in Yakima and only has 12 beds. What do you think the city of Kennewick can do to help families with youth who struggle with emotional and behavioral health?
So I think, again, collaboration, I'm really big on that. One of the things we have to look at is, do we enhance the services that are already out there, or are we putting in new services? Where is the best funding going to be? We need sustainability. We cannot start a project 5 years into it and say, whoops, we're out of money and that's it. The KGH campus, again, potential placement there, depending on what happens with that. Working with the agencies that do exist, and I realize there's a dearth of really good information and pathways, but I know there's agencies out there. I know that there are areas we can go to. Zoning would be helpful if we could offer inducements for certain styles of teen care. And some of the fundamentals, you know, how do we keep kids engaged? And I use the kids kind of, because it starts at a very young age. You know, it's 6th grade, 7th grade. These are kids going through emotional problems that need our engagement and our help. Thank you.
I agree. This is a difficult area, and it's one of those things that people don't recognize as a need until they have a family member who's struggling with it. So I believe that the city does set the tone for the direction of our community and those social needs. So I do agree with the private collaboration, but we need to give incentives to bring those professionals to our area. We also, comprehensive health is one of those. Lourdes had a behavioral outpatient for teenagers, but it has gone by the wayside. So how can we incentivize these other agencies? Lutheran Services also offers for foster kids. They offer intensive case management, so does Catholic Family. How can we help and assist in that? The other thing that I think that our city needs to do is address some of the social issues that are making you guys depressed. It's boring. Frankly, what are you gonna do? On your weekends, what do you do in the Tri-Cities? So if we can bring some of that activities that you can do with your family, that's not boring, and you can bring in some of that community inclusion, such as having festivals or activities in a park in your community, not always at Southridge, but maybe over here at Eastgate Park or some of these smaller parks that can help you guys build community, that's really gonna help. So, you know, depression is caused usually by being alone and isolating. So if we can help build community, which is the city's job, is to help build our community. So that's what I hope to do.
Interesting, as I read that question earlier today or last night, and then I didn't know we were going to be here with the school board, but as I was listening to the members of the school board just give their answers, I thought, boy, I'm glad I don't have to answer that because I know nothing about the school board. That's why I'm not running for school board. I'm not a healthcare professional, nor is anybody on the city council. And so we have to collaborate with people who know what they're talking about. So I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you, as a member on the city council, I'm the expert on everything that comes before me as a member of the city council, because that's frankly just not true. What I can tell you is what we need to do is we need to go into the healthcare field and find out and say, okay, what's needed, and maybe not the healthcare field, but find the people who are working with these youth that are struggling and say, what's needed, and then how can we facilitate that as a member of the city council? Usually, it boils down to where are you gonna get the money to build a facility to help people? That's what it always boils down to, with a lot of things that we face in this world. So what can we do as a member of the city council? We can give incentives for businesses. Say, hey, we want you here. We need a facility like this in our city. We may not have all of the funds, but let's work with somebody who's willing to bring their business into town that knows how to do it. That's a professional. Say, we're gonna give you some incentives to come in here. We'll give you some breaks. We don't wanna charge you a bunch of fees. We wanna make this as easy as possible to get a facility here. I think we have things in the city called opportunity zones. I don't know if the Kennewick or the old hospital is in one, I'm not sure. But within those zones, we as city council have the opportunity to create an environment to where a business like that and somebody that knows how to run that to help people can come here. Because frankly, as we sit up there on city council, we're just not experts in how to deal with that. I do want to say this, I've got 2 kids that go to high school right now. One's at Kennewick, one's at Southridge. And when I saw that number, I guess it was a little staggering to me that if you do the numbers, how many in this room have attempted or how many people have thought about it. So we also have great teachers and counselors at schools. Reach out to someone, those people are trained and ready to help. And I know as a teenager, young adult, it's hard to think about that. But if you're struggling with that, first reach out to them. Start at your school, because you got great people here who they love you and they're ready to help you.
I've been pretty fortunate as a commissioner, and I was on the commission to write that public safety tax that you may hear about in the news. Some of that money can be used for mental health. That's why we created a mental health court. Not everybody that gets in trouble went to get in trouble. They had issues for whatever reason, and we created a mental health court. Another thing that was created out of that was juvenile justice court. Juvenile, because that's needed. And what it does is help with juvenile justice programs as well. I've noticed researching that Kennewick does spend their money on, I'll call it administrative, more than they do mental health. Now, the reason they do that is because they rely on the juvenile justice facility and mental health to try to get things done. That doesn't mean it can't. Doesn't mean we can't spend more money, but that would take your engagement to try to do that and convince the city that maybe we do need to spend more money on that. No problem with that. I noticed, I looked up that Benton City's gotten about $90,000 to help with this issue. But they're not Kennewick, right? And that was their issue, and that's how they wanted to spend their money. So, if a group like this came up to me as city councilman and said, hey, this is a big issue, we need to spend more money and we need to find ways to impress the city council. Hey, I'm on your side, it's no problem. I am unhappy with commissioners who do not want to spend the money. The intent when we wrote that was that if you had good reason and you needed that money, public safety tax, we all pay it, by the way, and they would let that money flow a little bit more freely. That hasn't been the case, in my opinion. I think it could be spent more freely. So with that said, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
You know, my feeling on this is that there are a couple of things to take into consideration. One is there's a couple of words in here, families in crisis. And from the standpoint of where suicides come from, some of the impact is the result of families who have difficulties in maintaining wage jobs that are close to their homes. You know, parents who have to work and travel to work and come home from work at a distance. Oftentimes that takes away from their time to be parents or to be involved in the family unit, and it leaves kids like yourselves in a position where they're required to take care of themselves and to do some of those things with other kids and act as a family, and that creates some stress at times. It was brought up earlier that there aren't enough things to do in Kennewick for young people. I agree that there can be more things to do for young people, and so the activity and the recreation side is something that I would look to promote. You know, from the standpoint of what we have providing right now, there are some crisis hotlines, there's Action Council, but those are almost more reactive things. It's like it's got to the point where it's so bad that we have to do this. The mental health has to be part of an outreach, and I think it's within our ability to provide some of the outside resources, but we really have to seek partnerships with people in mental health, with businesses in mental health who have the experience and the knowledge to deal with these things and to keep it an attractive area. I mean, it doesn't make sense to put a mental health facility like it is in Yakima and not have anything that's a resource close for us. So we need to look at where the best possible places for these things to go it would be and encourage them to go there.
So I'm going to thank you for the question, by the way. You've made me think on that for quite a while. Very thoughtful question. I'll read that mental and emotional health in general is just as important to our overall well-being as good physical health. So what does that mean? When your physical health is hurting and you break an arm, you're told to go see a doctor to get it fixed. Get some medicine for the flu. When you have cancer, people feel sorry for you, and you go to the doctor to work on that. When you have mental and emotional health issues, the awareness is not there. The reaction, the general reaction of the population is, oh, tough it up. You know, that's part of growing up. You know, you just got to deal with it. When in reality, mental health is no different from physical health. And that comes down to our insurance programs and our healthcare facilities too. So, you know, we have to bring the awareness that that issue is out there in our community. And suicide awareness is very important. Because as young adults, you know, I lost my best friend of 40 years a year and a half ago to suicide, and I still think to this day what I've done for him to prevent that. And it's a very emotional thing for me, and I know it is for others and families too. We need to look at all the different awareness, and there's a lot out there. They just had this past September the walkabout for suicide awareness down in Columbia Park. Senator Brown sponsored a bill for a task force for tip lines, to study tip lines. Tip lines is out there to help those thinking about harming themselves, and it has shown to save lives. Those are the different awareness programs we need to look at. Also, the other thing we need to look at is, for Kennewick itself, we're a small community. So is Richland, so is Pasco, and the surrounding communities. We need to consolidate those communities till we can be have the clout of a 300,000 people community, to where we have the clout to bring in these facilities and attract them into here, and not at small city level, but on a regional area. Suicide is one way to prevent it is to talk about it. And to prevent suicide, if you're with your friends, don't be afraid to ask the question if you think your friends are thinking about harming themselves in some way. You are not putting that suggestion into their head. They have already had it in their head if they're struggling with the different issues they're dealing with in their young lives, or any life for that matter. So please don't be afraid to talk to them about it. Talking prevents suicide. You need to do that. I do have cards up here that have a lot of information I'm going to leave for your students at the school. It's a wallet size. It's packed full of information to help you can use to hand out and help your fellow students, friends, and family. Thank you.
Representation matters. According to the Office of Superintendent in Public Institutions, 52.5% of Kennewick students are white. But 85.9% of our teachers are white. 51.7% of our students are male. But only 23.6% of our teachers are male. Many students are members of the LGBTQ community, such as myself. But yet, I've never had a teacher who is openly identified as LGBTQ. We want teachers who understand where we're coming from. But that's difficult when you don't see teachers who are like us. If you're elected, what would you do to increase educated diversity in Kennewick schools?
You know, here for 10 years, and in the past 10 years, I've seen the diversity change. And I believe that Kennewick is continuing to change. And I think as the diversity changes, you're also going to be drawing in more diverse people into the education system. The thing that I honestly would like to see most is hiring the teachers who have a heart of a teacher. Because when you are different, they don't see you as different. They see you as a person, and that's who they see you as. And they are there to encourage you to find your heart as a teacher, because if you're struggling, you will see that, and that's what you will want to bring to the children that you have. And I know that it's hard to bring people in when they don't want to be in such a small community, but when you bring in people who have the heart of the teacher, no matter what nationality, whatever race, whatever gender, it brings in people who care about the students. And when you bring in people who care about the students, what you end up bringing in, you just bring in people who care, and they look at you as a human, and that's what you want mostly.
I had two kids that go through the Kennewick School District, in every one of their classrooms, they were the only one of their color in the classroom. And they would come home and say, Dad, why is it that I'm the only one in the classroom? Who can I talk to? And I said, you talk to the teacher. The teacher should address you as if you're just the same as all the other students. And you know, they told me, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about, but they ended up getting through the system and making it through successfully. What we have to do about it, I'm on a state board. I'm returning on the school board, and I'm on a state board addressing this very issue. Even in the school board here in Kennewick, we're reaching outside of the Tri-Cities. We actually go to the college campuses recruiting teachers at a very early stage. Even in their junior year of college, we're recruiting them to come here in the Tri-Cities to add to the fine teachers that we already have, the group of teachers that we already have. We will continue to do that. But the challenge is keeping these new teachers here in the Tri-Cities. And we have to find a way, working with the tourism board, to show the shining light of the Tri-Cities to these new people. Show them, hey, within hours you can be in the mountains. Within hours you can be in a big city. Within a few more hours you can be on the beach. So we have to promote the Tri-Cities within our recruiting efforts. We have to reach out in programs like student debt. We have to offer or look into offering some relief from student debt. Mortgage and rent. Down in Florida, they actually have a program where they pay part of the mortgage for a year for new teachers, just to keep them in that high rent or high mortgage area. And that they recruiting teachers all over the place. Everyone's competing against that. The main thing I want to say in closing my part here is it's going to take you guys. You guys got to become teachers. But whatever you are, you got to look at this as a profession that you can contribute to, because that is where the diversity is going to come from. The very people in this classroom, in this school.
All right. I'm a business guy, and I look at these numbers, and to me, they're eye-openers. Obviously, to get this kind of details, you guys did your homework and you looked into the numbers and everything, and that's quite impressive. Because again, I look at these, and you can't say anything. You know, it looks like we need help. It looks like we need to go out there and access the minority population to try to go out to the college campuses and get these individuals on board. Mentoring programs in case they're struggling or whatever, to make sure that they're successful as they go through and teach you and teach the kids that are coming up through the generations. But I'm gonna flip it on you guys a little bit now too, though. The economy. I'm sure that you guys are reading the economy right now, and we're at the lowest level of employment right now. So this isn't going to happen overnight. And like Ron said, this is going to take you going through school and maybe your brothers and sisters and friends going through school to help change this. Because again, you're not going to get a whole bunch of people coming to the Tri-Cities because we're a great place to live. It's just not going to happen. So it's going to take some time for it to happen. So you got the economy in there. And I take this question very personally. Do we have any Cascade Elementary School kids in here? Anybody? Raise your hand. Oh, come on, guys. You're killing me.
Oh, someone back there.
Okay, I love you. I love you. 5 years ago, I was talking to my wife, who's a second grade teacher at Cascade. And it was at the time where there was not a whole lot of subs. Teachers were feeling bad because they were getting sick and they were having to come into school because there was no teachers. They would pull PE teachers to help teach the classrooms. I'm one of those guys who I need my PE. I'm bad if I don't have my PE, if I don't have my music. So I actually 5 years ago went to OSPI, got online, and right now I am an emergency substitute teacher in the Kennewick School District. And one of the reasons being is because when I look at the elementary schools, especially the elementary schools, in Cascade there's one male teacher. Actually, he's not a teacher, he's an administrator. There's no other male students. And I think that's a shame because, again, the representation that the males bring across in elementary school, I think is very important. So I have actually done something about it, and I enjoy my time when I go into the classroom and teach with the kids. And I can see the bonding that occurs for some of the students who may not have a father. But it just brings that other emphasis into their education as well as their lives. So I'm done.
So our teachers belong to something called the Kennewick Education Association, and one of the things that our local education association and Washington Education Association have been working on, and that I've been a part of, is working with two different groups. One is Educators of Color, and then we have they change their name frequently, but it's our LGBTQIA+ group. And so we encompass everybody within that. So trying to get people from those marginalized groups to understand how important it is that, exactly like you asked, that they be teachers. However, here's a problem. Until just recently in the state of Washington, teachers did not make as much as people working out in industry made. And so if you come from a family where you may be the very first one to go to college, you probably need to make a good salary. And until recently, that was not necessarily what happened for teachers. And so we lost some great people who wanted to be teachers because they needed to make money for their families. That also happens for men. So we have a lot of men that start teaching. Mr. Mabry said we need to keep them. They usually go on into administration. If you look at our administration, more men than women because you make more money. And so by changing the financial structure of what teachers get paid, that works a lot better. You know, Ms. Carlisle talked about how the area is becoming more diverse, but I do know personally we have several people who openly but maybe very quietly identify, very quietly, most of them, because this is a community that is not particularly open to differences of any kind, but especially if you're very open about your choice. And so as we bring people in, as a community brings people in, as our city works with us, we get more people who look like you and act and feel you, and I think that's the most important thing. School board members don't hire teachers, but we do certainly set tones and help enforce policies, and so that's something that the board can do and board members can do, and I would hope absolutely to do that.
According to local experts, sex trafficking is a serious problem in Kennewick, and the average age of victims is 12 years old. Often victims believe they can't come to the authorities for help or they themselves will be charged with a crime. How do you think the city of Kennewick can counter human trafficking and protect victims without violating the Fourth Amendment's protection from unreasonable searches and seizures?
So it's working, again, regionally. Sex trafficking doesn't happen just in Kennewick, just in Pasco, just in Richland. We have to work cooperatively with all the agencies. We have to also work with federal and state agencies because they're usually the first ones on board of, you know, big moves like this type of deal. We struggle with that at times. The public safety sales tax was a good place to go. But that expires in 2024. When that expires, what happens to those 20 police officers that are funded? You know, those are the type of questions we need to start thinking about today. As far as making kids comfortable, and again, we're talking 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. Schools need, in my mind, in collaboration with the city, making sure that they know they can go to authority figures. We need to talk about things more than we do. And that really is just what it comes down to is we need to talk, we need to plan for the future, and we need to recognize it is a regional problem and we have resources now, but we need to continue.
I love the fact that you guys asked this question because in 2013, I was part of a documentary that was featured on PBS that talks about human trafficking here, and it featured a high school student that went to Kennewick High that was trafficked. And it does happen here. And so the fact that you guys are even talking about it is great because it's out there. I'm a board member on the Tri-City Coalition Against Human Trafficking. It is a collaboration between all 3 different areas. We have Kennewick PD, we also have Homeland Security, we also have all the social service agencies. Most of the time, human trafficking is more survival sex than it is a prostitution type thing. So one of the first things is talking about it, getting it out there, making it safe for you guys to talk about it. I know that Kennewick PD with the school district has put together an app where you guys, if you see something, you can report it. But one of the main things I think on city council we can do is promote training for our police departments and for our staff so that they know what human trafficking is.
So I've got a few family members that are in law enforcement, and so I reached out and said, what are you doing and what's going on with human trafficking? Kennewick Police Department is very focused on this. They are working very diligently to stop all of it, but they can't. They're just not going to stop all crime. They wish they could, but that doesn't happen. But they are working. It's on their radar. Overall, I think they're doing a tremendous job of it. One of the parts of the question that I kept reading over and over, it says, or they themselves will be charged with a crime if they come forward. And I think that's a two-way street, meaning we have to, all of you and all of us have to educate those around us that out of the hundreds of thousands of transactions that police officers go through in a given month or a given year, are there some bad ones? Absolutely. Unfortunately, in the day and age we live in, we see those on Facebook, we see them on Instagram, on revolving news cycles that kind of teach us that all police officers are bad. And if we go forward, if we're involved in something like that, we're going to get in trouble. It has happened, but they don't report the hundreds of thousands of transactions that happen between police officers where they help people like you and I. And so we have to do our best to realize it's a two-way. If you give respect to your teacher's going to give respect back to you. Just like that in the police officer. I'm teaching my children and those around me, you give respect to a police officer, odds are they're going to give it back to you. Through our running for city council, at city council meetings, there's a lot of members of police officers that have been there. Chief Hohenberg is there at every meeting. I can tell you that he cares about each and every citizen of this city. So give respect, but teach those around you that that should never be a concern. If something bad's happening in their life, they should be able to go forward and report it to the police without worrying if they're legal, illegal. I don't care about any of that. If something bad's going on, teach people around you. The police are there to help us, and hopefully that does happen.
Like I said earlier, I was commissioner on that initiative 14-5, and that money also could be used for, it's been given money, about $5,000 through the Mirror Ministries. We've given money for that. But more importantly, what I think we need to do is communicate. You know, coming from the law enforcement background, is that, you know, not everybody's in trouble when you talk to a police officer. COP stands for Community-Oriented Policing. And I think Chief's really good at that. I think his folks are trained. Just because an officer shows up, doesn't mean you're gonna get in trouble. He's there to find out what happened. He's there for the initial call out for the crime, let's say, and he's investigating. People that contribute or help to that, that's gonna help to try to resolve that issue, whatever it is. So I think, and I would be a proponent, I have some ideas on coming from 35 years of law enforcement, to help the chief. Whether he accepts them or not, I don't know, but I'll let him know. And that requires police officers getting out in the field and talking to the public more often. Not just when a bad thing happens, but to show up and say, hey, what's going on? Is there anything I can help with? And you feel free to communicate with him, and you know him, and you're comfortable telling him what you think. Thank you.
By show of hands, how many of you in the audience have a regular conversation about human sex trafficking? That's a good start, I guess. So, you know, in this question, fortunately, after being after 4 really good responses, I can pretty much say ditto to most of that. But it really comes down for me is to normalizing the conversation about human sex trafficking and making sure that people like yourselves are aware that this is an issue that other people around you may be dealing with. And part of that comes from resource availability. So we need to make sure that we're encouraging resources to the schools. We need to make sure that we're encouraging those resources of mental health outside of the schools. And they don't necessarily come from funding from the city. They also come from people who specialize in those areas. And so we need to continue to look for those resources to be brought here. If they're businesses that specialize in those things, or mental health professionals that can locate in our area and keep those resources at front, that's the best possible thing we can do. Again, normalizing the conversation that this does exist and that it's something that we have to deal with.
I think that your first three questions, your homelessness, your teen mental health, and your human trafficking, are probably intertwined together when it comes down to it. I think they all, I think the first two have something to do with human trafficking and self-esteem issues and whatnot. I think awareness and education is what's needed to happen, not only within the youth, but within our community. Don't think that is out there, that is actually happening in our area as much as it should be. I think it's going to take a comprehensive, a multidisciplinary approach effort with state and federal entities to address these issues. It is, as they've said, it is a regional, it is a lot bigger effort than we can handle local. But using the criminal enforcement, victim outreach, public awareness, and education is one thing we need to reach out to do. I think that the public safety sales tax that Ed brought up, that's gone a long way to help with all the local, regional law enforcement agencies to address this and other criminal activities. But educating and making awareness to our community and our young leaders is important. Thank you.
At Phoenix High School, we talk and engage in current events on a regular basis. It is something students always seem to speak about when they are asked what they enjoy about Phoenix. This forum is an example of how we engage with what's going on in our community. This year, 100% of our eligible voters are registered to vote. However, at other high schools, students don't learn about current events till their senior year. And even then, the focus is on national issues and not local issues. Students want more opportunities to engage in citizen-led democracy. How do you feel that teaching current events and civic engagement is an important goal for schools, and if so, how would you support that if you were elected to the school board?
Well, I think that local issues and national issues are actually important for everybody, but I also think it's driven by the student population. So I'm impressed with what you're doing right now, because this right here is helping people get more engaged. And that's what's important, because when you are engaged in what you're learning in, you're going to learn that much better. I think that teachers, when they're doing their training, they can be taught to bring in more of the civic and environmental things. But also the students, it's going to be led by the students, because if you are involved in it and you're reading, you're watching the news, and you are more involved, you are part of this community right now, and you're about to step forward into it even more so, but you're the one to bring it to the teacher so that they can make it more relevant to you, because when you bring that in, it makes it more relevant.
Again, being on the school board, I have had students come up to me and ask me about certain things that's going on in the local community and nationwide, and how it affects them. So I 100% believe in your question here, and very proud of your 100% voter registration. But to take it to the next level, I think we need to realize that current events happen currently. It happens right away, and to have a teacher try to keep up with every current event is quite challenging. What we would like to see, and what we're working towards, is bringing more of the events and relating them to what's going on in the classroom, what you're trying to teach. And I'm gonna give you an example. Here recently, we had a crane that failed over in Seattle. It crashed off a very tall building. We have engineering classes. I would like to see an engineering class go through the causes, the physics, the mechanical engineering of why did that happen, and what could happen, and how could we prevent it in the future. Have the students take that as a challenge. Now, I'm not a teacher. I can't tell you how to teach such things as that. But that's an example of what we can look at, how we can bring current events into the classroom and address them. And in the Tri-Cities, we can talk to you to talk to your parents about current events. And I know your question is how can we do it in the classroom, but we have to take that outside of the classroom also, because we gotta have 24 credits to graduate. So we gotta realize and be forward with you that some things have to be cut short so that we can get you through the graduation process. Okay, we could allow clubs and events that happens outside the classroom within the school grounds. You can have clubs that talk about current events, current event club. We gotta allow you to communicate. We gotta give you freedom to communicate about current events and not feel stifled or fearful that you may say the wrong thing. We gotta allow you to say what you feel and then do something about it in the current events portion of what we're talking about. And I made a note here that I wanted you to know that current events are important. Discussing them is important, but what happens sometimes when you discuss current events and you get your different opinions, anger creeps in there. And on the school grounds, we try not to promote anger. So in this open communication, we're asking that you do it as fair and as open as you can, but at the same time as civil as you can.
All right, when I read this question, it seems to bring out a lot of your first questions associated with maybe we're so busy making sure that everybody has enough credits to graduate that we basically lose focus of other things in life, as in current events. Obviously, that's not a situation that we're going to, us four are going to resolve today. But maybe that's something that should be taken forward to the state, to the OSPI, to the men and women who basically come up with the graduation requirements, so on and so forth. So one of the things I want to talk about, and I'm going to stretch this a little bit, is like I said, I was at Kennewick this morning, and some of the stuff that happens is they bring in a program called Junior Achievement. Now I know at least one person here I've taught before in Junior Achievement. So, but again, it's basically bringing in the outside to come in and talk to you guys. And again, the class range from freshmen to seniors. When I come in from a business perspective, and I talk to students about resumes, about soft skills, how not to get fired, how to get along with people, expectations, those type of activities, and so that you guys understand that this just like an education is a process. Your career, your life after high school is a whole process. And again, I understand that not everybody loves college, and it's not for everybody. The trades, the Tri-Cities has a tremendous trade organizations throughout that have great salaries and great benefits. There's people who just basically want to get a job. We want to make sure that you guys, and that's probably part of the communication, get ready for the jobs, as well as military. Military, you also have that expectation. So one thing I'm going to challenge you guys talk about the things that are near and dear to your heart. What are you guys doing to progress that schedule also? Community service, informed voters, you guys are taking that step there. Basically following the news. Again, it's not only us up here, it's also you guys taking responsibility also for our success.
All right. So he's doing the lunch thing, so I'm going to do this really fast, and I'm going to cut off the first half. So one of the things that the board does is that they look at curriculum. So your teachers look at curriculum, community members, your parents, yourself, you can come and look at all the different options of curriculum. And they move it all up, everybody gives their idea, and then board members look at them and make some decision as to what would go. So I would use my place on the school board to look at those curriculums and help bring things forward that have more of that. I think there are some teachers who bring current events into everything they do, and they do that very well. It just seems very natural. But yes, it's not a part of of our everyday curriculum. TriTech, we're talking about the crane. I know that the kids at TriTech, that's exactly what they did the next day in their building trades class and in some of the welding classes. So we do have people who are able to do that. We had some music issue with the school board a couple last spring, and students were the ones who made the change. So you were involved and you did come. And that current event, you changed a big thing. Please come to the KSD school board meetings twice a month. You can find out when they are at. We would love to see you. Do you know there's a student rep on the school board? They're a non-voting member. And I'm gonna say this, and I mean no disrespect to the people, the students who've done it, but they have been AP class kind of students, always. Why? I don't know. So maybe other kids don't know. Why not a TriTech kid? Why not a Phoenix kid? Why not a Legacy kid? Why not? So you also should know that you can be on there. City council meetings. They're very entertaining, I would say, in a dry, strange way. Ezra's saying yes. I belong to a group called Racial Justice Equity Coalition. We will meet on November 11th at 6:30 at Community Unitarian Church over in Pasco on Sylvester. That's a great thing. We have 2 Kennewick High students already coming. Benton County Commissioners, I don't know, you could let your kids, if you let students go, they're 9 o'clock in Prosser, but that might be one of your opportunities that you could do for some credit for that. And I think Ron mentioned Chris Rectal, OSPI, the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Give that man a call. He's supposed to answer to students, parents, and community people. Give him a call, send him an email. They've got his email address. That's what they need to answer to you, not the other way around. So please be involved. Thank you.
Thank you all for speaking and coming out here this afternoon. We are very glad to have you all here. Your answers have really helped us get an informed vote.
Because local elections are so small, our votes matter much more to y'all. Compared to situations such as congressional elections where there are many more voters.
Remember that you can register to vote in person at the county's auditor's office until Election Day, which is next Tuesday, on November 5th. Ballots must be postmarked or dropped off at a ballot drop location by November 5th.
This year, mailed ballots don't require any postage. Just get them in the mailbox. Let's have one last round of applause for our candidates.